Hello out there to all my brave companions. How are you doing? Welcome to the fourth Bardstream. Uh, as before, I'm going to take some questions from some patrons. These are patrons that I select in essentially a random fashion every month. For now, I'm calling them VIPs until I think of a better term for it. And these fine folks get invited to not only contribute a monster concept for the newsletter, but they also can send in questions, or they can appear live, as you've seen. This time, we're just going to have some questions that were written into me. I'm not going to have any live guests, but that's okay because I took a peek at them and they look like good questions. So I'll keep this stream public for a day or two, and then it will go into unlisted status. And anyone who is a patron, any level on my Patreon, get access to these videos forever, sort of an archive. So a little benefit for everyone. And if you're interested in that, or if that sounds like something that would give you some ideas or enhance your own game or give you some inspiration dice, I encourage you to go check it out. I've got the link down in the description. Otherwise, I got plenty of free content, and I love doing free stuff as well. I try to do plenty of free stuff every month to show my love for the community and for this hobby. Sometimes it's more than a hobby, right? I think for some people it's really a passion. For some, even an obsession or a lifestyle. So yeah, I love to contribute. Also, I'll try to get around to answering some questions from the comments section as well. So feel free to drop questions or comments there in the live chat, and I'll do my best to get to those. I don't think I can always quite get to all of them, but we'll see what I can get to. So why don't I jump into these questions first, and we'll see where that leads us. I've got two. We'll start here with the first one, which is from Jack. And Jack writes, "Hello, Esper. Longtime viewer, first time caller. I just read the email. I have a question about how to create more fairly balanced homebrewed player characters or more interesting character progression. For example, both of my players are homebrewed characters. One is a ranger owlbear slash Aarakocra. That was an experiment. That sounds like quite the experiment. And the other was a fighter dragonborn race from the Shadowfell of another dimension that had tails and a bunch of specific lore. So how could I, as the DM, create abilities that can match these backstories as they level up to make more sense? Something more than simply them unlocking the usual ranger and fighter abilities while also making it balanced. One thing we've agreed on for the Dragonborn was that his tail can be used in quick, sharp movements and allows him to attempt to trip opponents. But it also affects stealth since he has a tail that makes him a bigger silhouette. I think what you mean by that is it gives like a disadvantage or a penalty on stealth. Sorry if I started to rant a bit, but I've been struggling a bit to try to find a good balance as they continue to level up past level 3. I'm looking forward to hearing it on the stream. Okay, so you've got 2 homebrewed races, yeah? And you want to give them your own custom homebrew racial features, something cool that they can use that fits the theme of the race. And also it's a fun mechanic, something they can use in combat, maybe in other scenarios outside of combat. So it needs to be cool, but also you want it to be balanced. You don't want it to be too strong. Okay. Well, this is a very fun thing to do. Racial abilities. Well, it's always nice to look at what's already in the published books to get yourself a baseline of comparison. There is also some guidelines in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and I would encourage you to read those. They're kind of towards the latter section of the Dungeon Master's Guide and what's called the DM's Workshop. and it gets into talking about how to design monsters, classes, spells, and all these sorts of homebrew options. Okay. But a really good starting point is just to look at the racial features in the player's handbook or in Volo's guide, whatever official book, and get a basis of comparison there. By that alone might be fine, right? This is just your own homebrew thing. You're not trying to do anything extravagant with this. It just needs to work for your own campaign. So that might be sufficient. Just say, okay, this dragonborn, it's like, I think you said it was like a shadow dragonborn. Yeah, I know there are shadow dragons in D&D, and he has a tail, and he can use his tail to make attacks. I mean, you could easily look at another race that has a natural weapon and see how that's handled, and use your own judgment on it. Do you think the lizard folks' natural bite attack is? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's not quite good enough? And kind of gauge it off of that. So, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, and I think you mentioned a trip thing, right? Use allows to trip opponents. Okay, so imagine this. Imagine that this custom shadow dragon born, or maybe a half shadow dragon race, has a tail. It's a natural weapon, and it does probably a D6 bludgeoning. Sounds right to me. A D6 is like, that's as strong as a short sword and maybe a mace, but it's less strong as a long sword or a battle axe. And you're proficient with it. Okay, so you've got your proficiency bonus plus, yeah, I could see it being a finesse weapon. Why not? It could be strength or dexterity, right? So it's like a weapon that you're totally proficient with. It does a D6 bludgeoning, and on a hit, the target has to make a strength saving throw, or it's knocked prone. And the save DC, just use the standardized type of save DCs from all of 5th edition. It starts with a base of 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your in this case strength or dexterity, whatever you've assigned to this natural weapon. So either it's a forceful muscular tail slam, or it's a dexterous quick lash thing that kind of trips them up in a sense of, like, timing and precision. And if they fail the strength save, they're prone. So that's nice. It's like a little bit better than just the standard shove onto the ground action that anyone can do, because that standard action that that doesn't actually deal any damage. But of course, here you've got 2 checks going on, right? Like, you have to hit them first, and they have to fail the saving throw. So I think that's pretty balanced, yeah. In just the basic shove to the ground action, it's just the 1 check. I think it's a contested athletics check. It might be your athletics versus their athletics or acrobatics, and you just knock them to the ground. So it's only 1 check, but there's no damage. So I think that's fairly balanced as is. And then you could also add on to that, once per short rest, you can do this tail attack as a bonus action. I think that's pretty cool. I think if you didn't have that bonus action once per short rest option, it's nice, but maybe not quite good enough. I could see people like, I mean, I could just attack with my greatsword, or I could just sneak attack them with my short sword or my rapier or my short bow. But if you add in that extra little bit to once per encounter, I think that's nice. I think it's fine. Okay, so another way you could do this is make it sort of like the equivalent power of some lower level spells. Imagine, I'm thinking the tiefling race. At let's see, at first level you have a cantrip, thaumaturgy, which is more of a role-playing cantrip. It's not a direct damaging combat cantrip. And then at 3rd level, you get a once per long rest 2nd level spell, Hellish Rebuke. And then at 5th level, you get 1 more 2nd level spell, once per long rest, darkness. So you could base it off of that if you wanted to, whether it's this tail or maybe it's a different ability. Yeah, maybe this Shadow Dragonborn also has some kind of shadow magic, innate magic, or maybe a shadow breath, or I don't know, gaze of darkness. Or maybe for this Owlbear Aarakocra abomination thing, maybe it has some special ability. I'm sure it does. So you could base it off of that. You could say like, okay, at first level, there's this at will usage of it that is as strong as a cantrip, not stronger, but it's as strong as. So it's like a viable option. It's not gonna be so good that that's the only thing your character will ever do, but it's not going to be too weak to where you almost never want to use it. So just look at some of your favorite cantrips and you can kind of compare it to that. Maybe it's a combat function, or maybe it's a utility function or role playing function. And then at third level, it has like a new way that you can use it that's stronger, as strong as a second level spell, but you can only do it once per long rest or once per day. Then at fifth level, like you get a second usage of it, or maybe you get like yet another alternate usage of it once per day. And again, just look at like second or even first or second level spells to kind of gauge the power. You could gauge it based on Hellish Rebuke, on what's that one with the little Chaos Bolt, or what's that one? It's not Chaos Bolt. You like pick a damage type. Does anyone know in the comment section what the hell spell I'm talking about here? Okay, whatever. It's like 3d8 and you pick a damage type. So those are like some Burning Hands as well. Like those are some first level, second level damage spells you could base it off of. If it's like a utility thing, base it off of like Disguise Self, or Jump, or Levitate, or Expeditious Retreat. So that's my second suggestion for you. Another suggestion, another way you could do that is compare it to a magic item. Compare it to like an uncommon magic item. Or if you want, like at first level, it's as powerful as a common magic item. And then once you get to like maybe fifth level, it's as powerful as an uncommon magic item. So just go into the Dungeon Master's Guide or whatever resource you like and start reading through some magic items and see if there's anything that vaguely resembles the effect that you want to give to your race. And there's a lot of different magic items, and you can kind of gauge the power off of that. So I hope that's helpful for you. Yeah, those are my three suggestions. There was one other thought that I wanted to add in. You mentioned something about a stealth penalty. I would suggest against that. I would recommend against it. Now it's your race, so in the end, you're the only one who knows, and you can only make this decision. I don't understand everything about this race. Maybe there's something about it that it's important lore-wise that it has a stealth penalty. But if there isn't any important lore reason, and it's strictly just the fact that it has a tail, I wouldn't do it. Yeah, tieflings have big tails. They don't have penalties on stealth. Goliaths and bugbears are big 7-foot tall hulking guys, and they don't have penalties on stealth. So it's the philosophy of fifth edition, and I think this is representative of kind of the general perspective of most gamers nowadays, is that be very, very cautious whenever you put any kind of penalty into a race, right? Into the racial features, or penalties into like a class feature. It's largely gone out of style. I understand why it's gone out of style. I think to a good degree, I also agree with it. I think maybe I disagree at some parts. Like I think gnomes and goblins should have penalties to their strength just because they're 3 feet tall. uh, and yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit that I would take issue with, and I've talked about that in some of my videos. But I wouldn't put a penalty in unless it really, really is important to the race, or even if it could lead to something interesting. Otherwise, it's generally not a good idea. Like one time, I got a message from a guy who said he didn't like the armor in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. He thought it wasn't done right, and he had a different armor system that he wanted to implement. I can sympathize. I also think the armor could be a little better in 5th edition, and I have a couple little minor house rules that I think enhance it. But he had this complex system where he was breaking down the armor into your chest piece or your cuirass and your gauntlets and your helmet and your greaves or your boots. And he had these different pieces of the armor, and each individual piece gave you a fraction of your AC and maybe a +1. But they also had their penalties with them, right? Like if you put on the +1 helmet, you also had like -2 on perception, or maybe disadvantage on perception because it's blocking part of your view. And if you put on these gauntlets, you had disadvantage on sleight of hand and lock picking and so forth. And they're things that, that he, in his mind, they made sense and they added to the realism of the game. But I cautioned him and I said, I wouldn't go for this, even though, yes, it is more realistic. It absolutely is more realistic. It's not actually adding to the fun of the game. It's really not adding anything. No one's going to see that and say, "Oh, that's cool. I'm glad you did that." I could be wrong. Maybe you have this group that are just like these hardcore realists, and you want things to be as realistic and like historically accurate as possible. If that's the case, 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons might not be your system. But anyways, I really caution everyone before you penalize things or add penalties or these drawbacks into things, really, really think and ask yourself, is this penalty enhancing the game? Is it actually enhancing the game? Or are they just more bookkeeping that the players are going to have to do? And not only is it bookkeeping, it's bookkeeping for something that's penalizing you, which that's not very fun. It kind of sucks. That said, I do use some house rules that make things more challenging. And actually, I do have one for armor. It's like if you're wearing armor that gives you the disadvantage to stealth, like chainmail and there's a number of armors that give you penalties on your stealth. Those armors also give you penalties on your ability checks to swim, because it's hard to swim when you're wearing chainmail or full plate or I don't know, splint and scale mail and stuff like that. So yeah, does that add to the fun of the game? You could say no, it doesn't, but I think it adds enough to the tension that it's forgivable. And I guess some things in my mind hurt my believability too much that I can't go for it. I can't swallow the fact that in Skyrim I'm wearing full plate armor and loaded down with 300 pounds or 300 units, and I can just dive into the ocean and swim around like a mermaid. When that happens, part of me doesn't believe in the magic of the game anymore, of the world, and so it hurts my immersion. So maybe I'm a hypocrite, and maybe your armor system guy actually does help your realism, and it makes you really enjoy the game more. So in the end, it's all an opinion. Do what you want, but that's my suggestion. I would say think very carefully before you add in a penalty. Yeah, I'm sticking to my, if you try to swim wearing heavy ass armor, it's going to be really hard. All right, let's move on to the next question. This one is from Yuso Hakala. I might have pronounced your name wrong. Please forgive me. I know you're from a Northern European country, I believe Sweden. Forgive me if I got that wrong. Yuso Hakala. I've never really played the tabletop D&D. Started to get curious lately, and I've wondered about the leveling of characters. I'd like to know if the creatures have set experience that the adventurers gain from killing them, and or does the game or dungeon master have full control of distributing experience and levels? First of all, play some D&D, man. Yeah, get in, jump in. You got to just play. That is the primary way in which you're going to learn. Just by playing, by doing it, you'll learn so much. The books help, and discussing things help, and reading things online helps. Yes, great. Totally for that. But you're never truly going to learn it until you play. So I encourage you to find a group. I know we're in kind of a quarantine situation right now. I don't think that will last forever. So eventually you can go out to your local gaming stores, look for flyers, or put up flyers or posters, or you can just ask, just ask the people working there. If you see people playing D&D, go up and talk to them. I don't know how many times in my life I've seen people playing D&D in public, and it's generally very easy just to, hey, you guys playing D&D? Or, hey, is it cool if I watch for a minute? And most people that are playing D&D, especially in public, are going to be friendly or at least welcoming people. I mean, this is like this activity that we all love, so it's cool when we meet other people that play it. So it's generally pretty easy to approach people like that. If that doesn't work for you, search online. If you want to play an online game, which absolutely can be done, go to forums and websites and social medias and such that can help you find a group. And if none of that works for you, start your own group. I've done it before. Lots of people have done it before. Just make it up yourself, man. Just talk to your friends, put out your own posters or ads online, starting up a group where you want to play blah, on such days or such times or such adventure or 5th edition D&D, just whatever. Create your own group. You can totally do it and play it and learn and enjoy it, and may your adventures be many. Okay, so leveling of characters, experience points. One thing I should say, the simple answer is yes. Every monster has an experience point value, and the characters gain that from defeating the monsters. They don't have to kill the monsters. This isn't a video game, and like the game only knows that you've won when the mob is dead, right? This is an experience of storytelling and imagination, and so you just have to defeat them in any sort of way. Maybe you've wounded them and they run. Maybe you've wounded them and you take them captive. Maybe you knock them out. Maybe you scare them away. Maybe you trick them with illusions. Maybe you sneak up on them while they're sleeping and poison their food. I don't know. Use your creativity, use your imagination. As long as you succeed, whatever that means in the scenario, and you have met danger, and you have met challenge, and you have overcome it with victory, then you get those experience points. So every monster is going to have a set amount, and the higher the CR challenge rating, right? The higher the CR of the monster, the more experience it's worth, right? So like a basic goblin is worth what? 50? I don't know. I don't actually use the actual experience point system. I use my own system called Milestones, which is similar, but it's simpler. 10 levels get you a milestone. For like a simple challenge, you get half a milestone. For a moderate challenge, you get 1 milestone. For a hard or difficult challenge, you get, I'm counting incorrectly, so there's a half. There's 1 for a standard challenge, 2 milestones for a dangerous or a hard challenge. And then if it's like very hard or deadly, it could be 3, 4. I don't know. I think I did 5 one time, but that was just like insane. They succeeded though. So that's how I do it. So it's like XP, right? You meet the challenges, you succeed, you get the reward, and then at a certain point you reach the next level. I like that better personally for a couple of reasons. One is because the XP system in 5th edition is not great. I'm not going to say it's bad. It's not bad, but it's not great. It's overly complicated, and especially from the point of view of a dungeon master, using the XP to like build or buy units in an encounter, or however you want to phrase that, it's tedious. It's tedious. It takes too long. It's too complicated. It's too much nitty gritty math. And meh, even if you have some kind of like math encounter calculator thing, which they are out there, even then you're still have to like divide it up, so there's 6 of the 50 experience point goblins in the fight. So that's like 300 experience points. And there were 5 player characters. So they got 60 experience points each. All right, well, that's pretty easy. But what happens when it's like each monster is worth 750? But no, there's also a monster that's worth like 125. And then you're giving people like, all right, you got 212 and a half experience points. And they're like adding up on their character sheet. It just adds in these math moments that actually don't enhance the game. They actually stall out the game. It's much easier just to like, pardon me. It's much easier just to hatch mark, dot, number, whatever, milestone. Let's keep moving. But you still get that great sense of reward. Like, yes, I faced that thing. Maybe I even faced it alone. Yeah, I was like all by myself, and I got that. I achieved it. It's a wonderful feeling. So there was something else I was going to say. It's also easier for me as a dungeon master to use this milestone system for non-combat experience points. What is that, you say? There is a way to learn and grow and develop through life that does not involve slaughtering creatures? Yes, that is true. So there are plenty, lots, various even situations where you face real threat, real challenge. There's something on the line. There's something that you need, or there's something at risk, and you put yourself on the line in some kind of way, and you might succeed and you might fail. And if you make it through, you get the reward. So much easier to use the milestone system. The guidelines in the Dungeon Master's Guide and Xanathar's Guide to Everything about non-combat experience for skill challenges and traps and navigational hazards and very difficult role-playing scenes. They're okay, but they're just not implemented well. Unfortunately, 5th edition didn't do a great job of non-combat experience points. With the milestone system, it's a piece of cake. It's so easy. Okay, that was a minor yet significant moment in the adventure. Half a milestone. There you go. Good job. That was a very important, long, difficult, dangerous, some catastrophe could have happened if you failed that. You get 2 or 3. So I love it. There are other DMs that do things differently, man. Every DM does something different, and that's fine. Some DMs don't use any of these, tracking any kind of point at all. They just say, you succeeded, you finished the adventure successfully, you gain a level. Every time you finish an adventure, you gain a level. Or some just feel it out. They're just like, this seems right. This point in the story, this climax in the action and the tension, this is the right moment. Now you've broken through, you've had your epiphany, and you have reached the next level. So some DMs do it that way. So good luck to you with finding a group, get in and play, and get your experience points or your milestones or your levels, because, man, it's a beautiful feeling. So thank you very much, Jack and Yuso. And thank you, everyone who's been following along live. I'm going to try to get in Chromatic Orb. That was that spell I was trying to think of. Thank you, Timothy Hanmer. Okay, I'm going to get to the chat here and see if I can address some questions. Michael Mueller, looks like he got the first one in here. What do you know about Harn World? And have you ever reviewed their material? I have not. I'm currently working on taking Harn into AD&D 5e. Do you have any ideas? Okay, Harn World. Harn. Is that just a name? Harn? Okay, I'm pulling it up here, and if I can quickly get something off of this to be able to speak to it, I will. Okay. Well, the cover of the book is medieval art. Well, that's cool. I do like medieval art, and I like historical things quite a bit. Harn World. Harn World is a detailed, realistic, flexible, and system-neutral setting for fantasy role-playing games. Since 1983, Harn World has been used by thousands of people across the world to run a wide array of medieval fantasy adventures. Harn World can accommodate whatever style of campaign you're looking for, whether your player characters are knights, mages, barbarians, clerics, noble lords, mercenaries, gladiators, craftsmen, merchants, thieves, or even simple peasants yearning for adventure. Okay, so no, I'm not familiar about this, so I'm not going to be able to speak too specifically about it. But I would certainly give it a try. I'm kind of open to trying anything, and medieval, historical, realistic, those things all appeal to me. I like history as much as I am a fantasy guy. I get a lot of inspiration from the real world. That's actually why I switched my D&D world, because I used to do all of my D&D stuff in my world of Novara. But then it came to a certain point where Novara was getting more realistic and more, I don't know, I can never describe it right, but not ultra high magic like D&D is. And it wasn't, D&D wasn't working for it anymore. It's also the world of the books that I'm working on, that I'm trying to get published, right? And if you read those books, man, it doesn't feel like D&D. Okay, like there's moments that will feel kind of, in general like D&D, yes, but the overall tone of it is not D&D, and it has a more realistic feeling. It also has a more mythological feeling too. So I need to figure out a way to describe the style of that setting. So I made this other setting, Ikoria, which Wizards of the Coast has now taken the name Ikoria for their new magic world. And with Ikoria, I made the setting that I could do the ultra high magic setting in, and have, a bugbear paladin in the same party as a fire genasi, divine soul sorcerer, and a merfolk that summons pixies, and a dragonborn who misty steps all over the place. It accommodates that, and it celebrates that, and it embraces that, and it's a lot of fun. But in my heart of hearts, I really do love things that have real human experience and human heart and human struggle to them, and I like things that are informed by history. So I would definitely give it a shot. I'm not sure that generalized or generic setting RPGs are the best way overall. They can be cool, like everyone likes Elder Scrolls, and there are no classes in Elder Scrolls. You just kind of play whatever you want and you put it together yourself. I played the Burning Wheel a little bit, and that's also kind of that way. There's no class, but you kind of pick what your character has done throughout his life, and that informs your skills and your abilities and such. But man, people love a setting, a real setting that has lore to it, and a style, and this class that like means something, and has like an archetype that it represents, and character. People really gravitate to character and story. And when you remove character and story, and you just have like this generalized, open, basic framework that you can just do anything you want with it, something gets lost in there. I guess it gets a little abstract. I don't know. People just love things that have style and aesthetic and character to it. So good luck doing your conversion to AD&D 5e. All right, let's go along. Chase 101. What's your opinion on modules And if you have ever played or DM'd or read any of them, what is your favorite? Okay, there are some great modules in 5th edition. I have some experience with them, and I've talked about this a little bit. I haven't made a video about it because I don't think I have quite enough experience with them to be able to make a full video talking about the different adventure modules and adventure paths of 5th edition. But I have played some. I've played some Dungeon of the Mad Mage and a tiny bit of Tales of the Yawning Portal. And I've also played Curse of Strahd. I've DM'd Curse of Strahd and I've DM'd Dungeon of the Mad Mage. And then as a player, I've played a tiny bit of Tales of the Yawning Portal. And I feel like there's something else. Oh my gosh, the Tomb of Horrors, Tomb of Annihilation. I have read through parts of Tomb of Annihilation. I also have Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which that is a kind of a eclectic, lots of things in one book. So Curse of Strahd was the first one that I got. And I like the setting. I like the lore. I like the concept. I like the theme. I like the tone. And there's a lot of little sections in that when we played through them, they were cool. And the players really felt it. And there were some actual, creepy moments and horror moments and goth moments. So I in general, I'm quite fond of it. Something about the actual way the book is structured isn't the best to me. I found myself flipping back and forth a lot through pages, and I didn't like that. It's like something with the layout wasn't working for me, and maybe it's just because I'm used to DMing my own setting and my own world with my own notes and my own familiarity, and I can just improvise things easily. So maybe I'm just so used to that I'm used to having a faster flow, and then having to flip back and forth and okay, wait, who was that and what, where, what? That maybe it just threw me off because I'm just not used to it. Maybe if I just played Curse of Strahd and the Ravenloft 5e setting more, I'd get that problem would go away. I don't know. And then they got to the castle of Count Strahd, Castle Ravenloft. Let me see if I can pull up this map real quick, and I'll screen share it here. Yes. Okay, let me screen share this. And then they got to Castle Ravenloft. Have I done this right? Oh, there we go. And you get this. And each of those sections, K12, K22, K7, K8, those all have their own section and across multiple pages. That is hard to use. It's not very user friendly. Let me see if there's another map in here. Yeah. And see, that was just one level. Then there's another level. And here's more levels. It looks cool. I mean, just as a map in terms of cartography and aesthetics, it's great. But actually, like in the moment playing it when you're like the DM and you're trying to keep track of 1,000 things all at one time, and you're trying to keep the action flowing, not user-friendly, unfortunately. So something I felt was a bit off in terms of the structure and flow and layout of Curse of Strahd. So I wish that would have been better. It was like hurdles that was holding me back from really staying immersed into the setting and into the game. But otherwise, we've had great fun. Though in my world, what I used Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft for, that whole thing's been resolved. So if I ever ran it again, it would have to not be canon. It couldn't be in the actual timeline of my world. I'd have to like just make it its own whole different setting, a whole different thing altogether. Dungeon of the Mad Mage, I think overall I enjoyed running it more. even though it doesn't have that classic gothic horror theme, which is really cool, it still does have style and personality to it. And actually, each dungeon level has a cool theme going on and a storyline going on, and the layout is good. Um, it's it's like a simpler kind of dungeon crawl, but because of that being a little simpler and a little more dungeon crawl, it was easier to implement it and to actually run it from a practical sense. Um, let me pull that up. Mage. I want them up. Okay, there's some maps. So see, you get maps like this. Aha! Well, that is a lot easier to use. And I could easily like just find the map and download the image on my computer here. So there I have the image of the map. I could transfer it onto paper, and then I could use the actual book itself, where I'm reading through what's going on in the individual areas that they go to. Also, there are some different online cartographers out there like this that have made enhanced versions of the various dungeon levels of Dungeon the Mad Mage, and you can download those, and they're really high resolution. See here, 6800 by 8700, and you can use that to play it online. So I found Dungeon of the Mad Mage to be much easier to actually implement. It was more user friendly, even though by storytelling purposes, I'm supposed to like Strahd better. The others, man, I just don't have enough experience with them to be able to speak to them. So I hope that was interesting for you. And, maybe someday I'll get to play in some campaigns from the other published modules and have the ability to make a video about the adventure paths of 5th edition. But I love my own setting. I'm such a creative soul that I love creating my own thing. So that's really my shebang. The left-hand man asks, what is the limitations on the polymorph spell? Basic polymorph? Gosh, I think you can turn people into animals, just animals. And if they don't want to be turned into it, they can make a saving throw of some kind to avoid it. I don't remember if it's wisdom. It might be wisdom. I don't know. Read the spell. Steph Hanley. My players have come across a lot of treasure and a few wishes. They want an airship that's also a spaceship. Can Spelljammer be homebrewed into 5th edition? Well, I think anything can be done. In theory, anything can be done as long as you do it right, as long as you approach it right. If you execute it well, it can be done. And of course, everything can be executed poorly and not implemented well. But going across planes and through space, or maybe the astral sea, as you'd call it in Dungeons and Dragons, can be a wonderful and amazing kind of adventure. It is more challenging for the dungeon master, so keep that in mind. I've been DMing for a long time. I have a lot of experience with it, and even I consider the higher level, extra planar, plane hopping, teleporting, gate portal opening, plane shifting, that style of play, it's a lot, because imagine everything that you have to keep track of to run a region of your D&D world. You've got this town and this woods over here and this mountain and these couple dungeons, and there's all the stuff that is happening there and all the different NPCs and the different motivations and the different factions and the history of it all. I mean, that it can go as deep as you want to go. Then scale that up to a whole realm or a whole continent or a whole kingdom. Then scale that up to a whole world. Well, now let's go to multiple worlds, and each world has all of those details and its own terrain and its own mechanics and its own kind of laws that govern it. Like, I guess you could say its own physics, its inhabitants, its lore. Whew, it's a lot. It is really a lot. I would not advise a newcomer DM to jump into that. That would be biting off more than you can chew. You might start off with something simpler. I mean, that's just a general rule for everything in life, period. You learn simpler things first, and then you move on to more complex and advanced things. But let's say you are an experienced DM, you know what you're doing, you're comfortable with it, and you say, let's go for it. Let us jam the spells. Let us travel the astral sea. Let's be Githyanki pirate dragon riders. Who knows? Maybe you're riding in an astral skiff. It can be a lot of fun. You just have to remember the epic scale of everything. And there's a lot of consequences of that. There's a lot of implications of that. Certain things that challenged or hindered lower level characters don't matter anymore. And you have to think of the player characters differently. They aren't, local upstart folk heroes anymore. They're like superheroes now, Really think of it that way. Your party now is like Wolverine, Cyclops, Storm, and Professor X. And they're going against, Magneto, and I'm not up to date on my Marvel lore. Magneto and Silver Surfer. No, Silver Surfer is usually a good guy. Those other villains from Marvel. So it's at that level. Dark Phoenix. It's at that level. It's like their decisions impact the world, impact a whole people, a whole race, a whole continent. They have serious consequences to their decisions. And if they just want to play like, level 3 murder hobos, you got to let them see what the consequences of that are. They need to be dire consequences. You're not just playing with fire anymore. Now you're playing with like meteors. You're playing with suns. It can be a lot of fun. It can be wild and crazy and epic and legendary and stuff you'll remember forever, but it's going to be so complicated and you're going to get exhausted. So enjoy that. Let's go to the next. Bartek Scissors. I don't know if I'm saying your name right, so please pardon me. Could be interesting if their tail, rather than attacking, which scale? Okay, you're referring to this Shadow Dragonborn homebrew race. Could be interesting if their tail, rather than attacking, which scales poorly at later levels, pun intended, can perform a shove action to knock foes prone as a bonus action. Okay, I think that we already accomplished that with the idea that I'd suggested. Andrew Hazelwood says, bludgeoning finesse? I don't think so. Get out of here. There's no such thing as a bludgeoning finesse weapon. Left-hand man. Should the 9th level spell Weird be a 7th to 8th level spell? I don't think so. I think it should just be made better. I actually covered that in my video, the worst spells in D&D and how to improve them. I just made it a little bit stronger. That was all. Evil Monkey. What's a good magical item? Possibly a dumbed down version of a legendary that is good to build a low-level campaign around. A ring, and when you put it on, you turn invisible. Constantly, permanently invisible. However, when you wear the ring, the eye of a great and powerful supernatural evil comes upon you, and it knows where you are, and it calls you through supernatural domination, and it sends its most powerful thralls and minions to your very location to take this item from you. Or you could just reskin that. So it's not a ring anymore. It is, the generic one's a sword, but why do generic? It's an eyeball. It's an eyeball made of crystal. And you have to sacrifice one of your own eyes. And someone maybe has to do some kind of magic rite, or maybe some kind of skill check to successfully plant it in. Okay. And the effect, it's not invisibility. No. That we've seen that before. The effect is you can see any person that you designate. It could be a specific person, or it could be a type of person or creature, right? So you could say um, undead, or you could specify Mayor Brigands, and with your eye, you can see the person. Now, maybe they're not literally within the reasonable amount of distance. Like even if you could see through like an X-ray vision through solid objects, maybe they're on the other side of the world. Well, you still know exactly like the direction that you need to head in, right? And so you can find that person. And not only can you see the person, but you can see the exact angle and direction to strike them. So maybe you have advantage on all your attacks against them. And when you hit them, it's always a critical hit. All right. You always can see the weak spot at just the right angle at just the right time. You can always exploit that. Yeah. So you designate the target, you can hunt them down, you can track them down, you have advantage. You always score a critical hit against them. Um, is that at legendary level yet? Maybe so. And maybe it needs to be even a little bit better still, but legendaries are pretty potent. But while you have this eye in, the let's see. So I liked the idea of the Eye of Sauron, but let's do it a different way. Maybe there's like a Tarask or some mighty underground behemoth titan of primordial eras. Um, it also knows where you are, and it's like, boring through the crust of the world. And if you keep this eye active for too long, you risk that it's going to actually pop up as well. And so now you're not just fighting your quarry, you're also fighting a whatever monstrosity behemoth thing at the same time. That's what I could pull off the top of my head. Oh, we have a super chat in here. Well, let's go right to the super chat then. Victor D20. Hey, Victor, how's it going, man? Okay. When a party hits level 20 in my campaigns, I give them a reward for such a momentous occasion, known as Ascension to the Throne of Immortals, or Godhood if you speak the dull tongue. I think that is a fantastic idea. Something very similar happened in my home campaign that recently concluded. And you might hear me mentioning names in my live stream campaign, where you'll hear like Anji the Dragon Emperor, Stragor, High Lord of Magnaland, Exarch of Illis the Lantern, Raven Eye, King of Naperna, Elka, Justiciar of Mitrasat Seal, the Mithril Dragon, etc. Those were the player characters from that campaign. And they got to level 20. They succeeded in like this legendary epic apex of the main conflict of the storyline. And they ascended to exarchs of gods and, living demigods. And, one is the emperor of the main empire of the world. And I included, things with that, like Hanji wields an artifact scimitar that is actually made from one of the teeth of that dragon god, and also he has a scale of that dragon god too that works like a defensive floating shield / Ioun stone all in one. But there are these boons, right? These divine boons that come along with it. It's awesome, man. I wish that sort of thing was just already written into the classes. D&D did this some in 4th edition with the Epic Destinies, and I really liked that concept. Unfortunately, that's not in 5th edition. I really have to wonder if 5th edition was designed up to level 20, but then the designers kind of left it open-ended, so to say. Like, okay, we left ourselves room to, if we want later, make the epic player's handbook that goes level 21 to 30. they might have done that. And so as I'm going through these class rankings, I have to suspect that that was left open or on the table to some degree, because it's strange that that's just totally absent in 5th edition, and most of the capstone features of the classes and the subclasses don't have that epic feel to it. A lot of them are just sort of something that you might expect to get at any level, which is really weird. So good on you, Victor, man. Getting to level 20 is a rare and monumentous occasion, and it should be rewarded with epic, rare, and monumentous perks. Next, we have... so this might be a Brazilian name. If it's Brazilian, it's Guido Moreira. But I don't think it's Brazilian, because that actually would be different. It'd be like Guido Moreira. So I'm going to guess it's either Spanish or Italian. Guido Moreira. Moreira. Perhaps it is Spanish. If you are a man of Mexican ancestry, feliz Cinco de Mayo. Es un placer tenerte aquí conmigo. If you are not of Mexican ancestry, I hope I did not just insult you and your entire family. But I will get on to your question now. I am playing on a Discord server with a one-shot system. In the last days, and in the last days, the administrators are having problems with the difficulty in the tiers 2 and 3 because Deadly has no limit. Oh. Well, sounds like the administrators need to get on the ball and start working with greater challenges for those higher tiers. That's a problem in 5th edition as well, man. The player characters and the monsters, they don't scale at the same power level, so to say. It's like the player characters are going at this pace and the monsters are going like at this pace. That's hard to actually do. Try making your two hands go up but at different velocities. Okay, there we go. At level 1, stuff is deadly. At level 3, it's still quite challenging. Level 5, okay, take a little sigh. You've kind of like got over this hurdle, and now you're starting to like tap into some greater levels of power, and it's not so terrifyingly difficult. Level 7, you're starting to see a shift coming into play, like looming on the horizon. Level 9, the tables really are starting to turn. Level 11, the tables have turned by that point. The characters really have become distinctly extremely powerful. And it continues from there. By the time the characters are level 20, I don't know how to explain how powerful they are. Earlier I said that those kind of like mid-high spelljammer plane hopping characters were like superheroes. Level 20, they're like gods. So imagine a party of gods. You have a party of gods and all the various different options and things each of those characters can do, all combined together. Plus they have all the experience of having played together throughout all those months and adventures, maybe even years. So it's like their tactics have become a lot more coherent, and like they combo off of each other. They know what the hell they're doing. It's mind-bogglingly, it's insane. It's just crazy powerful. And how do you create challenges for that? I don't know. It's really hard. I mean, I guess you can this is a CR 38 monster with a 45 AC and plus 20 on all its saves, and every hit it has like a plus 40 to hit, and every hit does 100 damage. But then it's just okay. Good for you. You put bigger numbers on the sheet. Pat yourself on the back. That's not sophisticated. I don't know how to answer it. I have some inklings. I have vague ideas of how to handle it, but I don't know. And I've just recently concluded that campaign that went all the way to level 20. Actually, Anji made it to level 21. It's like there needs to be a different Dungeon Master's Guide kind of book made that addresses this sort of thing. And I don't know what it would be called, but it's like the how to create actual challenges guidebook. Like, you need more than just numbers and high stats. You need more than just, well, you can make a harder encounter by putting 10 more monsters into it. Well, duh, right? You can make the characters fight 50 beholders all at one time, and that's going to kill them. That doesn't satisfy it. It doesn't it doesn't fulfill the problem. It's just like a dumb band-aid. You need something that actually addresses the root cause. Like I said, I don't know exactly what that root cause is. I just have like this hint of an idea, but it has something to do with like the writing at the core of the system, and like the, like the perceived notion of what this game can do. It's like Dungeons and Dragons needs to take some mushrooms and go on like a vision quest and like unlock the potential of its soul. It needs to like open its mind, man. It's an amazing game. Obviously, I love D&D. You might have noticed I'm quite passionate about it, but it still kind of has like this narrow mind. It's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because when you narrow and constrict things, you also give it shape, right? You give it definition, and it gives it like an energy. Think of water. If you have just like this wide river, it's going to be a lazy river. But wherever the land gets more constricted, or maybe there's these big rocks, suddenly it's flowing faster. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that D&D is kind of narrow. But if we want to create challenges for the people that have like mastered all of that, both dungeon masters and characters, players, that's like, okay, been there, done that, seen that. We need a different kind of challenge beyond just more numbers. Then you're going to have to, it's something different, like a new layer is going to have to be added into D&D, and it can be done. I know it can be done because I've had moments in my campaigns where I felt like I'd like broken through the boundaries of the limitations of the D&D system, and I'm sure the players felt it too. It's like we reached something new and different, like discovering a new continent. It's an amazing feeling. I just wish I could tell you what exactly it is. If you follow my online campaign, my Land of Dreams and Nightmares, if they survive the current encounter they're in, you're going to see some of this stuff coming up soon. I've written some different, not totally different. It's kind of stuff that I've done before throughout 3rd, 4th, and 5th edition, but they're like challenges of a different nature, something that goes beyond what the game tells you you're supposed to do, beyond what the game says it can do. And it sucks because it's not actually in the D&D rules. So, I mean, to an extent it is, right? Like, they're still going to make like skill checks and use their spells and stuff. But the challenges that they're going to face and the things that they have to do to overcome those challenges are like beyond just typical deal damage to its hit points or pick the right skill and roll high. Yeah, sorry for being vague, but the potential is there for there to be a new, I guess what we just need are people to sit down, like thinkers and writers to sit down and like, we need to write some more sophisticated challenges that go above and beyond what we've already seen in 5th edition. That was a super long-winded answer to a question that I didn't even fully understand. But I think it was a very important topic. So thank you very much, Guido. I've got a couple more super chats, so let's jump over to those. Victor, you are a generous soul. My humble appreciation. I have to give a little extra for inspiring the creator within me. I've been working on small guides for a new world I've named Angoria. It's coming along with introductory books to the regions and the kingdoms. Cheers for that. Right on, man. Good on you. Those historical details and the lore of the world and the regions that you're working on is going to make everything else in the game that much better. You know, you can fight a band of orcs, and that can be cool. You know, it can be a thrilling fight, like it can give you a bit of adrenaline, or maybe it can give you that sense of a strategy game, right? Like you have to use your intellect and your strategy and overcome a multifaceted problem, and that satisfies us. You know, we like problem solving. But if that band of orcs like has a name to their clan, and they have history with the land and beliefs and stuff that they care about, and NPCs maybe, and maybe there's a layer of subtlety to it, that they're not just 100% bad guys. They're not just generic
Urak will burn your town down, and I will steal your women, and I will make butter out of your babies.
You know, and they're just this totally most generic Disney villain, and they have a human side. They have vulnerabilities. They have history. They have families. They have an inkling of virtue to them. They have something that redeems them. Maybe they're a lesser evil that holds a greater evil at bay. Suddenly that orc encounter it's a whole different encounter. It's not even remotely the same thing. You've gone beyond strategy and action adrenaline and woo, I want to get XP to level up. I don't mean to downplay that. Sorry. Getting XP and leveling up is hella cool. But you've gone beyond that. Now you've got the players thinking in character, and that's what you want. I know every campaign's different, and there's different styles out there, but I truly believe that if you can get to the point where people are immersed in the fantasy world and like invested in the story, in the world, in their characters, and like they care about their characters, and there's like some meaning behind the decisions they make, and they have to think like, if we do this, then that means this other thing is going to happen, or this thing that's been in place for a long time is going to suddenly get dislodged, and that might have supported up, like 1/3 of the foundation of the fabric of this realm. And it's like you reach a different level of satisfaction and depth. It goes beyond just already the cool thing of like the strategy of the combat and leveling up and building your characters. It reaches into really what is at the core of role-playing games, which is the storytelling. That is really what's at the core. That's why we love these games. That's the whole reason. And before there was Dungeons and Dragons, going back throughout all of human history, this is what humans have done. We've told stories and myths and legends, and we even had our own adventures and journeys, and we tell them to our friends, and they tell them, and it gets kind of exaggerated and romanticized and made fantastical over time. That's what it is. It's like part of the human essence. So enjoy that. Enjoy building your world. I got another super chat. So I'm going to go to that. Midigyo. I don't know if I'm saying your name right. Midigyo. A lot of Roll20 now. How do you successfully screen for players and prevent flaking? I find it hard to find that in the middle where I'm not elitist either. Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah. So you've been playing a lot online. Everyone has. I've been playing online only during the isolation, during the plague times. How do you successfully screen for players? Okay. I do screen for players. Most people do, I imagine. at least to some rudimentary degree, right? Like if this guy shows up and he reeks like a dumpster and he's insulting everyone, you're not going to play with him. That's screening. So what I do is whenever a new player is coming, I simply meet them first. It's as simple as that. Before any before I make any promises to them, or even on my Patreon for those that are that are the adventurer tier, before they've even paid me 1 cent, I meet them first. I just meet them and have a conversation with them. How's it going? What's up? Where are you from? How long you been playing D&D? What kind of character are you thinking about? Just, your regular, just a normal, regular conversation. And I feel it out from there. If you just pay attention to people, and you can usually get a read off of them. You can ask them questions. What do you like in D&D? What do you not like? Just talk about your campaign, or if you're not running the campaign yet, talk about your ideas for the campaign. Even better, talk about other campaigns that you've ran before. Just tell stories. This is something we all love to do with D&D. We all love telling stories about the adventures and the campaigns that we've been a part of, and just talk about it. And you'll get a reaction off of the person. You might say, maybe I'll say, so Elka got knocked overboard, and she was wearing this celestial plate mail, which is an awesome armor. But in my setting, I have a house rule that says if your armor is like a really heavy one that gives you disadvantage on stealth, it also gives you disadvantage on swimming checks. And she was sinking down, and she was going to drown. And we all thought she was going to die. And then the bard remembered that he had this water breathing potion, and they were trying to figure out how can you administer a potion to her underwater. And you tell how this whole thing unfolded. And the person will react to that. Maybe they'll be like, oh, whoa, that was cool. Or maybe they'll be like, yeah, well, she should have done this. And it's kind of a bossy metagamer or bossy power gamer. Or if he's like, oh, penalty on swimming and plate mail, what are you, some kind of jerk face asshole DM? I don't know if that would happen. One time, this is a true story, and well, I'll just do my best. So it was on my Patreon, and a newcomer came to be in the adventurer tier. So it's the highest tier. They pay them the most, and they play in the live stream campaign. And he wanted to join, and so I always talk to them first before anything happens. And I got on the call with him, and I could tell something was wrong. Something was off. And he was a young gentleman with a mental handicap, and he had some challenges with communication, with social skills. I don't know if he was autistic or what the situation is, but I identified that unfortunately would be a big that would be problematic for my group. It'd be problematic for live streaming it. It would be problematic just for the group, period. And I simply told him, what I recommend is just try to play D&D with your family or with some school friends. Just find a simple game, and you can just start simple, learn the basic rules, just have fun with it. Just have fun, see where it takes you, see what you like. It's not gonna fit well for you to be with these really experienced gamers, and we're kind of hardcore gamers, and we're really into the mode that we have, right? Our style, and we've got this unison, and it's a live streamed thing, right? And I want it to be something that is entertaining and interesting and valuable for people to watch live, or people to be able to watch it online. And I didn't enjoy telling him this. It wasn't at all pleasant for me, but I just basically said, look, man, I don't think it's going to work to have you in the group. Thank you very much for your interest. And I hope you can find a group there, in your own hometown or just in your own house, and enjoy it, man. It is what it is. Sometimes there are players that don't work. I've had to remove players from groups before. Not often, but it's happened a couple times. They didn't fit with the group, and they were disruptive, and they caused real problems. And it's as simple as that. I just said, look, it's not working out to have you in the group anymore. I hope you can find a different group that works better for you. It's not a fun moment, but you got to do it. You got to do it. Having the wrong player in your group can hurt the whole group so much. Imagine you have a delicious mug of beer, and then someone hawks a lug into it. They spit into it. That one booger in your beer ruins the whole thing. I'm gonna remember that. The booger in the beer. Oh yeah, I like that. So it's not a fun moment, but it's a moment you're gonna learn from. It's one of those learning moments where you're gonna get out of your comfort zone and you're gonna address a real issue. And after you get over that kind of cringe moment, you're gonna sigh with relief, and your whole group is gonna sigh with relief, and you're gonna be like, "Yeah, I had to be kind of an asshole." But all right, guys, our game isn't ruined. We can continue to have fun. It's not elitist as long as you do it in a mature way. Just you don't have to be arrogant about it. Just be straightforward. Just be straightforward and mature. I've talked to you, or maybe we've been gaming for a little bit already, and it just isn't working. You're not the right fit for this group. It's just not working out. I wish it was otherwise, but it is what it is, and we'll just have to part ways. Kind of like breaking up with someone. You also asked about flaking. How do you prevent flaking? Okay. I'm running kind of out of time here, but I'll try to answer this without going long-winded. I suppose I'm a bit long-winded. Flaking out. Yeah. Well, flaking out's not good either. I personally don't usually have this problem because I have a lot of fun with D&D, and the players that I play with have a lot of fun. I guess it's related to that first point of playing with the people that fit together. So it flows from that. It's just like friendships, right? You make friends with people that it's like you have common interests, but there's something more than that. For someone to really be a friend, it's like you just have something in your personality and like your values, like what you think is valuable and important, that aligns. They go together. There's something that you get that maybe not everyone else gets. You have a connection, right? And when you have friends, your little group of friends, you have a lot of fun hanging out, and like you get together and you do things that you even forget how much time is going by, and then it's like, oh God, it's 2 a.m. I gotta go because you've been enjoying yourself so much. So I think flaking out is that's not a root problem. That is an effect or like a symptom of some other root problem. So, here we go. So flaking out's like the symptom, right? I'm sneezing, but I'm sneezing because, some pollen that I'm allergic to got into my sinuses or whatever, something irritated my nose. So you gotta start with that root issue. I really think, well, actually, there's two. So the first one I've already been talking about is gaming with the right people, with people that you fit with, that you mesh with, that you get along with, that you have like a similar style, similar interests, similar values. Um, so that the right people, and that's part of it. Trust is in there too. Uh, Trust is so important. You need to trust each other as well. Like, trust that we all can, I don't know, talk in character, right? Like maybe I'm going to play a girl, or I'm going to play a gnome with a silly voice, or I'm going to be like acting out blobs. So I'm going to be doing something that if a person from the outside looked in on me, they would think, is this guy like having a mental breakdown? What is this? Um, Things that might be weird. But it's cool to be weird, right? It's cool to be able to just like ex, ex, like explore and experiment and express and try all these different things, and the people around you get that. It's so cool, and you have that trust together, and it's like we can play these characters and we can get in character, we can get immersed and like really delve into this fantasy experience, and we have this understanding with each other that we are allowed to do that, and we're allowed to like explore the unknown, and that it's okay, and then it's done, and we're like, okay, thanks for gaming. um yeah, trust is really important. So I think trust is in there with being with the right people. That was one thing. The other thing is make your game fun. Yeah, simple as that, right? Make your game fun. Now, fun is different for everyone, right? Fun is a very subjective word. What is fun for one person might not be so fun for another. Again, you have your right group of people, so you should all, in general, have this a similar um, notion or idea of what is fun. Make your game fun. Really, be a fun DM, or at least be an interesting DM. Like, there's some DMs out there that their games are kind of simpler, right? You can see them at the gaming stores. Not knocking anybody. It's that way, you know. Okay, in this room there is a chimera and 4 orcs. Roll for initiative. Some minutes pass, initiatives get noted. Okay, it's your turn. He doesn't even say the character's name. He just says the actual person's name. All right, Jennifer, it's your turn. You go. What do you do, Jennifer? It's already broken out of the immersion. Okay, I go and I'm going to attack this orc. I got a 13. Does that hit? Yeah, that hits. There's some DMs that are like that. Maybe they're new DMs. Maybe they're still learning, or maybe they're just not so geeked out, obsessed with this game. They're not so passionate about it. But it's easy to flake out on a DM like that, right? There's not much deep holding you in there. A flake is a thing on the surface, right? It's shallow. It just it falls off easily. A little slight gust will blow it away. But if it's deep and has like guts to it and heart to it, stuff that like anchors it and pulls it down, it's hard to flake and blow away because it's not on the surface anymore. So be a fun DM or an interesting DM or a DM that has like passion and emotion, or a DM that like designs encounters that are go above and beyond simple, generic, right? Like maybe there are these very unique and hardcore tactical challenges that like really gives people a chance to use their strategic their strategy, right? Their strategic muscles. So people don't flake out so much if your game is something like that, like a really good game. So yeah, game with the right people and make your game as good as you possibly can. Um, I said I wasn't going to go for too much longer or be long-winded, but I guess I am a kind of a long-winded guy. I think there's one other thing I want to say about that, making your game good. I think this is an important topic, and I'm gonna wrap things up. This is going to be the last point. Something else about making your game good, or we could also talk about this in more general terms. This is about improving as a dungeon master, also improving as a player when you play characters. You're going to have moments where you change, where you let go of something. It's almost like a little part of you has to die, and that's not easy. And you're going to resist it, and you're going to fight it. And let me give you a good example here. Let's say you have a house rule. I'll stick with those same armor things I was talking about because that's a good example. Let's say you have this house rule where, if you're wearing a huge masked helmet, you have disadvantage on perception. How can you look around when you just have a little visor slit like that? And your boots are, clumsy, so you have disadvantage on acrobatics, and you have bulky gauntlets, so you can't do sleight of hands or lock picking very well, and you don't have a lot of dexterity. How can you even fire a longbow like that? Impossible, or at least disadvantage, right? You are dead set on that. You spent hours developing that house rule, days even. You brainstormed about it and developed it for days, and you took the time to write out that document. And it's going to hurt your sense of realism if you do away with that. But it's not making your game funner. This house rule of yours that you spend a lot of time and energy on it, and it's important to you. You have to be able to kind of take a step back a little more objectively and look and say, is this really enhancing my game? Is this really adding something? Is it really making my game more fun or more interesting to play? Or is it just a pain in the ass? Is it something where if I took it away, the players would go, no, oh, come on, I love that? Or if you take it away, are they going to say, oh, thank you. I hate always having disadvantage on my perception checks. And it's hard to get to that point to admit I can do better. That wasn't the best idea. I am going to take my darling little child that I spent so much time on, and I'm going to put him on the altar of sacrifice, and I'm going to sacrifice him. But in this little death, it's like you open the door for something new, right? And like a new child can be born. This is all metaphorical. Please don't sacrifice any children for the love of God. And something new can be born. To use a generic saying, a cliche: when one door closes, another door opens. And when you have these moments where you kind of amputate or kind of cut out some part of yourself that wasn't working so well, it was kind of like a not a scab, like a boil or a poison or like a rotten part of yourself, right? It's like a bitter, nasty, rotten thing that people don't really like it, but it is part of you, right? And you extract that. It sucks. It hurts. And you have to admit that you were wrong, or you have to admit that you kind of failed, or you didn't do as good as you could. But you get over that, and then like a new muscle, a healthier muscle grows in, and you can do something better. So that's an important part as well about making your games better. This is true for dungeon masters and for players as well. Everyone is this way. I myself am included. I don't know how many times I had to take that step back and say, you know what? This is just me being a control freak. This is just me being a tyrant. This is just me being a naysayer. And I just can't bear the fact that something that I didn't think about, the player came up with it, and it's going to ruin my whole evil dungeon master plan. No! It's really hard, but you got to let go of it. Toss that into the sacrificial bonfire. And then something new is going to be born, and it's going to be better. and it's still going to be you. That's the cool part. It's still you. It's not like you've like betrayed yourself and lost yourself. It's not that at all. It's actually like you've cut out a half, like a glitched out, or like you've like fixed a bug, and now you can actually even be more you. You can discover more of who you truly are. So do that as well. Learn, grow, make your game awesome, and game with the right people. Thank you so much for your super chat of 50 in OK. That is Norwegian kroner. Okay. Hold on 1 second. It's going to bug me. Norwegian krone, or maybe krona. Norwegian krona. Okay, that is extremely generous of you. Thank you so much. I am humbled and I am honored. Everybody, I know I couldn't get to all the questions. I'm really long-winded when I talk about stuff, but I guess that's how I'm able to make a lot of YouTube videos. I have steam behind me. Everybody, thank you so much for those that have been watching live and for those that are going to watch this later. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please take care of yourselves to the best of your ability, and may your adventures be many. Until next time, my brave companions.